So you do see, it's quite impossible for me to divorce you.
Joanna Miles and Michael Moriarty star in a triangle of tormented love and revenge, The Sound of Murder.
Sound of Murder.
Small Bobby and Little Fuzzy Tail stood at the entrance to the magic cave and looked inside. They could not see very much, because the inside of the cave was quite black. But they looked all the same because they knew it was a magic cave, where anything might happen at any time. The magician had told them how to find the cave, but he had not told them what to do when they got there. When Fuzzytail had asked, he had simply laughed and disappeared in his favorite cloud of pink smoke. Small Bobby reached out his hand and held tightly to Fuzzytail. And telephone! Small Bobby reached out his hand and held tightly to Fuzzytail's soft little paw. And for God's sakes, come and answer that damn thing. I'm trying to work. Damn the woman! She thinks there's no one but herself. Hello. Oh, hello, Mrs. Murray. No, we haven't forgotten. We're coming to lunch. Yes, I know. You would like us to arrive as near to 12 as possible so we can see the garden and have a drink first. Oh, have you? Yes, well, you must tell my wife. As far as I know, she hasn't even gotten up yet, let alone picked 6 bunches of chrysanthemums. Goodbye, Mrs. Murray. Ridiculous. Small Bobby reached out his hand and held tightly to Fuzzytail's soft little paw. I think, he whispered, that you had better lead the way. After all, you know more about magic than me. Fuzzytail's round eyes blinked at him in the gloom. No, correct that. In the darkness. You're not frightened, are you, Bobby? Bobby was very, underlined very, frightened.
I've made some coffee for you, Charles.
That Fuzzytail, and I guess that he was. And after all, he was nearly 6 and twice as big, and it would never do.
I've got to talk to you.
Oh, Christ! You've ruined my train of thought. I wish to God you'd leave me in peace when I'm working.
This happens to be important.
Oh, and I suppose my work isn't? I suppose that it gives us an income of over $50,000 a year, enabling us to have this log cabin, as well as a house in San Francisco, not to mention keeping you in dresses and jewelry and God knows what. I suppose that isn't important at all.
Well, I'm sorry.
So you should be.
I'm sorry you resent spending money on your wife. You won't have to anymore.
What do you mean by that?
You know perfectly well we discussed it for 2 hours last night, and we have been discussing it for years.
Oh, that.
Yes, that. I want a divorce. I will provide the grounds for it.
Oh, that's funny. That's very funny indeed.
You promised to give me your answer this morning.
Oh, that sounds exactly like a proposal. Will you marry me or won't you? Will you divorce me or won't you? Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. Why do you look at me like that? Do you really hate me so much? Yes, I suppose you do. It's odd, isn't it? I can watch those eyes and remember exactly how they looked 10 years ago when we were first married. Same eyes. Only then it was love. You wouldn't think they could change so much, would you? Same eyes. You did love me, didn't you, Anne?
Yes, I loved you.
Then why? Have I changed all that much?
I've gotten to know you.
Well, love can die, so why can't hate? They're supposed to be alike. Shall we give it a chance?
Will you stop playing with me and tell me what you've decided?
Very well. Now, as I understand it, you are prepared to give me sufficient grounds to divorce you. Incidentally, will it be something new and exciting like cohabitation in a Carmel villa with Mr. X? Or will it be what we all know already? Will Peter Marriott be the correspondent in the courts as well as the lover in the bed? Or are we to keep him pure and unsullied and virginal so he may crave your hand the moment you are free?
Peter will be the correspondent. He wants to be.
Greater love hath no man. But has he got the money? They don't pay naval officers very much, do they?
All of this may be very amusing to you, but it's not to me.
Taking a lover isn't very amusing either. I'll let that pass.
Oh, Charles, don't pretend to be the injured husband. If you ever loved me, you stopped doing so long before I met Peter. You knew exactly what was happening, and you encouraged it, gave you more time for your work, and you were delighted. Is that true or isn't it?
That's quite true, my dear. It's regrettable, but quite true. Men must work, and women must be loved. That is the way of all flesh.
Stop talking like an adolescent schoolboy.
Don't be rude, Anne. You are asking me a favor, remember? I suppose it would be a lot easier from your point of view if you could divorce me, but then...
Well, mental cruelty is hard to prove, and in this case it would be impossible. You've seen to that.
Why don't you and Peter run away together, live in blissful sin?
Oh, damn well, why? I want to have children. I want to have a
you
child.
have a perfect right to want children. But I do agree it's more considerate to marry their father first. So, it's all up to me, hmm? Incidentally, when is Peter coming to receive the ultimatum?
This morning.
Now, Miss Forbes will be arriving later to type out some stuff I've been dictating. Oh, poor Miss Forbes. Such a good secretary. Really, you know, she ought to be pining away for love of me. That'd round the circle off nicely, wouldn't it? And she's not. She's pining away for love of Peter, and he hasn't even noticed.
Don't be ridiculous.
Oh, but it's quite true. You've only got to look at her every time he comes into the room, and it would be so embarrassing for you both if you were planning your future or your lack of it, and Miss Forbes was ogling him across the typewriter all the time. When is he due?
Now.
Well, Miss Forbes isn't due here until 11:30. No, I must be quite unique. A husband whose wife and secretary are both in love with the other man.
Please tell me what you've decided.
Certainly. It's very simple, really. I earn a lot with my children's books. Every year the sales go up, and I become a little better known to the children and the moms. The publishers are bringing out a new edition in the spring, complete with special bookcase, choice of blue or pink. It's very attractive. And no nursery is quite complete without a Charles Norbury corner. And that's the point, the name, you see. The children and the moms, they like it, they trusted it. It doesn't let them down. It's just right for a bedtime story. Quiet hour. Wholesome. Like Beatrix Potter. And if I were to be involved in a divorce case, they'd feel betrayed, let down. And innocent party or not, I'm afraid it wouldn't make much difference. And gradually the moms would stop reading my books to their children. And sales would drop. And that would be the end of Small Bobby and Fuzzy Tail. And Charles Norbury. So you do see, it's quite impossible for me to divorce you. Now or any other time. I'm sorry, I do see your point of view, but it's quite out of the question. Now, I must go and have my bath. Be a good wife and bring me a scotch and soda in the bathroom, will you? Ah, we are warm and we fill our heart's desire.
Sorry, I'm late.
You're not. I'm so glad that you're here.
Where is he?
Favorite place, the bath.
Listen to him. Happy as a clam. Well?
No good.
He refused again.
Point blank, unconditionally. No divorce. Not now, not anytime, never.
Did you tell him that I'd be the co-respondent? That he'd be the innocent party?
It didn't make any difference.
He doesn't love you. He doesn't even like sharing the same house with you.
Saves paying a maid.
Your marriage is dead. Why does he want to go on with it?
Small Bobby and little Fuzzy Tail.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
They're his children, so they have to be mine as well. Except to him, they have more claim in our marriage than real ones, and they earn far more money.
Do you love me?
You know I do.
Got a phone call from Washington this morning. The NATO post came through. I have to leave for Paris in 6 weeks.
Darling.
And you're coming with me.
No.
If we go now, for good, Charles will change his mind in time. He has to.
No. You don't understand him. You could never understand his cruelty. He knows what I feel, and he enjoys it. He actually enjoys knowing that I hate him. He loves the idea that I'm unhappier than he is. He's weak, he's frightened, and it gives him a sense of power. I probably should have told her this, but I didn't. He said, well, we have been married a couple of years. I found out that I was going to have a baby. I was very happy. I wanted very, very much. Yes, darling. His child. When I told him, he looked at me as if he hated me. He didn't say anything for a few minutes, and then he laughed, and it was the cruelest sound I've ever heard. You must get rid of it, he said. Get rid of it. Shh. He said that he preferred his own kind of children, the ones he wrote. They didn't give him any trouble. They didn't have any feelings or opinions of their own. They just said and did whatever he decided.
What happened?
Well, we had a terrible argument. Charles was very angry. I don't think he meant to hurt me, but he hit me and I fell and lost the baby. Charles was very relieved. Don't you see? He'd like us to go away together. He'd like us to live together, knowing that it was by his permission. I was still his wife and not yours. It would amuse him. And most of all, he'd love thinking of me, wanting your children, and not being able to have them because I was still his wife.
Then why don't we just go right ahead and have children?
What sort of a life would it be? Charles would make sure that everybody knew. He'd destroy your career. And most of all, he wouldn't give a damn if it meant ruining their lives as well.
Jesus, that bastard. I'd like to kill him.
Not a bad idea, but not very practical.
Isn't it?
Not much to offer, is it, going on like this? Maybe you'll get bored and go off and marry somebody else. There's always Miss Forbes.
What?
Charles says that she's in love with you.
Oh.
You could be right.
You remember I told you I was liaison officer with the British fleet from the Mediterranean?
Oh, what has this got to do with Miss Forbes?
Nothing. I'm thinking about something else.
What?
How to murder somebody and get away with it. Yeah, I shared an office with a British lieutenant. His name was Harrison. Little guy. One of the most boring people I ever met in my life. Except on one subject. Murder. Well, I don't mean he ever killed anybody himself, but he was fascinated by the theory of it. He must have read every book ever written on the subject. Anyway, one day he told me that he had worked out the perfect murder. He said it all depended on one thing. The murder had to have an accomplice. Somebody that he trusted absolutely. Somebody who wanted, who needed to murder as much as he did.
For we are good fellows in the beechwood and the bellows, and the cup is at the lip in the pledge of fellowship. I got fed up waiting for my scotch and soda. I decided to fetch it myself. You mark my words, Peter. Never marry a lazy woman. You do all the work, earn all the money, and they enjoy all the comforts. I can't even be bothered to bring you a drink. Oh. You're in the middle of a private discussion, aren't you? I do apologize for interrupting. Have a drink?
No, thanks.
You, my dear?
No.
That's quite right. Never drink when there is serious business to be discussed. Well, I finished all mine for the weekend, a chapter and a half of Fuzzy Tale and a heart-to-heart with my wife. All before 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. It's not bad, huh? As a matter of fact, we were discussing marriage. It's an interesting subject. To have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, from this day forth until death us do part. You probably think marriage vows are a lot of old-fashioned nonsense, don't you, Peter?
No, I think they should be remembered and carried out.
Really?
Yeah, especially the part about love, honor, and cherish.
And obey? Anne.
Yeah.
These curtains are absolutely filthy.
Well, I arranged to have them sent out to be cleaned, but you insisted on having them for the weekend.
You know, it's amazing how Anne lets dirt get onto everything. And she's the one who liked the place full of children. As well as the normal amount of grime, we'd have grubby little finger marks all over the walls and the furniture. Oh, well, I suppose we should be thankful for small blessings. At least we haven't got a bunch of brats to contend with. Ha ha, we are warm and we fill our heart's desires. For we are good fellows in the beechwood and the bellows, and the cup is up.
What did you say his name was?
Who?
The little man who'd worked out the perfect murder?
Oh, I'm interrupting again. I'm so sorry. A small Bobby. A little fuzzy tail. Have you picked those chrysanthemums for the Murrays yet? We're due there for lunch in half an hour, you know.
No, I'm afraid I haven't.
Oh, well, of course you haven't. But then you have other things on your mind, haven't you? See what I mean, Peter? Lazy wife. No good. You have to do it all yourself, even the gardening.
Supposing that you and I were planning a murder, Charles, you'd be the one that made the phone call and I'd answer.
They'd be able to trace the call.
Did it be genuine? You really would make it. Only I'd answer instead of Charles, that's all. And if you swore that it was Charles you spoke to, nobody could prove differently. Particularly if you were to phone the police immediately after you called here. Before you came home. Before you knew he was dead.
What would I say to them?
I'll get to that in a minute. There's nobody here but you and Charles on the weekends, right?
Only Miss Forbes when there's any typing for her. Sometimes on Saturdays, like today. And she always leaves by 3 o'clock at the latest.
Now, supposing, say next Saturday, that you had arranged to be out for the evening. It wouldn't matter exactly what time you left. But at 7, you'd have to be away from the house. And then exactly at 7 o'clock, you call this number.
From where?
Friend's house. Wherever you'd arranged to be.
We hardly know anybody here. Charles isn't exactly sociable. Except for the Murrays, the people we're having lunch with today.
I need some place where you could get in touch with the police and then get back here fairly quickly afterward.
And there's the country club. Betty Murray's always asking us to go there and play tennis. Charles always refuses.
And tell him to go alone. Tell him you just can't go on being rude to Mrs. Murray. But that you'll be back at 7 o'clock to fix his dinner. And then at 7, you look at your watch and say to Mrs. Murray, you didn't realize what time it was. And then you had to call your husband to tell him that you'd be late. All right so far?
And you would answer the phone?
I'd say it was Charles. And no matter what happened, you'd remember to call me by that name. See, I'd be in a panic. I'd be terrified. I'd say that someone had broken into the house. Someone I'd never seen before. A complete stranger. I'd say he had a gun, that he'd gone upstairs. That he was coming back down again. And then Suddenly I'd slam the receiver down as if he'd heard what I was saying and he was coming for me.
And Charles?
He'd be dead. I'd have shot him just before you called. As soon as you'd finished the call here, you'd call the police. You'd tell them what I told you. What Charles told you. And then you'd ask them to get out here as quick as they could. And if they suggested bringing you with them, you'd just say that you were scared. That way you could come back after they'd found him.
We're pretending to work out a theory we heard from some little man. But that's not what we're doing, is it? We're planning... to kill Charles. As if it was the most ordinary, everyday thing in the world. That is what we're planning, isn't it?
Yes, we are.
Oh, God.
You just do what I told you and leave the rest to me.
What are you going to do? I have to know.
Well, next Saturday morning around 10 a.m., I'll leave the Bay Court and I'll tell the doorman that I'm going to drive up to Stanley Point, naval base there. It's about 50 miles beyond here. And I'll tell him that I'm going to be back in the evening. And I'll drive up there. And I'll leave about 5:30 and come straight here. But I won't come by Highway 101. I'll come by the back road and I'll park down by the river. We both know that nobody ever goes down there. It's very dark.
You've worked all this out, haven't you?
I won't see you again for quite a while afterwards. Not until it's all died down. Unless you feel that you have to see me. And of course I'll come right away.
How will you get into the house?
Through the front door. I need a key. Have you got an extra one? Come in just before 7 o'clock. And as soon as we finished our call, I'll leave. I'll put the key right back in that drawer, and then I'll open that door from the outside and smash it. Then I'll run down to my car. By the time the police get here, I'll be well on my way to San Francisco.
Yes.
I'll go into my apartment by the back entrance. The doorman won't know exactly what time I came in. And you'll have told the police what Charles told you. Someone he'd never seen before had broken into the house. And no one will ever question the fact that I just went to Stanley Point and back. In fact, nobody will ever question me at all. Why should they?
He has a gun.
Where?
It's in this drawer. He bought it when we took the house. Said he was afraid of burglars.
It's loaded.
Yes.
And he keeps the drawer unlocked?
He says if he needs it quickly. Do you want me to unload it?
No. Leave it alone.
What if he gets to it first?
Oh, he won't. No, it's much better if it's his gun. That way I don't have to worry about getting rid of it. I can just leave it right here. I'll wear gloves. That way there won't be any fingerprints. And they'll just think that the man who broke in got it away from Charles when he was trying to defend himself.
Do you know how to use it?
I've been very well trained. Just aim at the heart.
Peter, what are we doing?
Tell you what we're doing. We love each other, and we're gonna get married. We've tried everything else. We've waited, we've hoped, we've discussed, and it all adds up to nothing except that you have to go on living with a man who hates you. Is it wrong to love you?
I can't see her. You talk to her. I'll go up and get my coat. Charles will want to leave as soon as he's ready. We're supposed to be there at noon.
I won't see you again before.
Noon.
I love you, Anne.
Go now. Go before I come down again. Good morning. Commander Marriott.
Yeah, wait, I'll get it.
Thank you. This is a nice surprise.
Well, I was out this way, so I just thought I'd drop in. Just on my way out.
I hope you haven't been keeping Mr. Norbury from his work. He called last night and said there'd be a great deal of typing to do.
Yeah, he must have started early. He was finished before I got here.
Thank you. I enjoy working out here. So much more peaceful than Monday to Friday in San Francisco. I wish they'd give up their house in the city and live out here all the time.
Wouldn't be very convenient for you, would it?
Oh, I'd be delighted. I love the country. I'm sure I could find a place somewhere nearby. Now that Mr. Norbury lets me use his old car, well, I really look forward to driving out here on Saturday mornings. If he calls and says there isn't any work for me, I'd feel really cheated out of the trip.
Well, will you excuse me? I have
The trouble with living in the city is, well, it can be so lonely. I hardly ever go out in the evenings except when Mr. and Mrs. Norbury asks me for dinner.
I see.
He senses that, you know. People's loneliness, I mean. Of course, it's got something to do with his work. All children are lonely at times, and he knows that, and he gets into their minds, and he gives them Fuzzy Tail and the others as their friends. It's a wonderful gift, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
They've asked me to dinner again next Wednesday. Will you be there?
No, won't.
I was looking forward to it. I'd gotten quite used to seeing you there. He always seems to ask us at the same time. Have you noticed that? Of course, he knows that you're lonely as well.
What was that?
Well, perhaps I shouldn't have said anything. But he did mention only last week that he thought you were far too much of a lone wolf and that you ought...
Go on, what else did he say?
I'll tell you exactly what I said. I said you ought to get married, Peter. It's just a matter of choosing the right woman, that's all.
I really have to go. Goodbye,
Unless she chooses you first. There are women like that. Ruthless. Miss Forbes is one of them. Quite ruthless, aren't you, Miss Forbes?
Oh, I don't know. I've never had the opportunity.
You would be, I assure you. Shall I say goodbye to Anne for you?
Yes, please.
You've had a long drive just to say goodbye.
Yes, I have. Goodbye, Miss Forbes.
Goodbye, Commander Marriott. Why did you say that to him?
What?
That I'm ruthless.
You are. You're also in love with him, aren't you?
Oh, please, Mr.
Why not
Norbury.
admit it?
I'm my employer, but you...
If you had half a chance to marry him, you'd take it.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
When anything is mentioned about which you feel really deeply, you shy away from it. You refuse to admit it exists. I wonder why. Perhaps because you're afraid. Of what you might do if you let yourself go.
I think you're having lunch at the Murrays. It's quite a long way. You should get started.
And so should you, Miss Forbes. You should get started. You're not 21 anymore. I'm sorry. I was only trying to help you. It's better to be honest with yourself. Act on instinct. Know what you want and don't be afraid of trying to get it. Children have that kind of honesty.
Yes. And sometimes they're punished for it.
Well, only when they're bad. And you're not, Miss Forbes. You're just frightened of getting hurt, that's all. And that's a great mistake. It's one of the main differences between us. I'm not frightened of getting hurt. Doesn't worry me in the least bit.
I'm ready to go, Charles. Good morning, Miss Forbes. Good morning, Mrs. Norbury.
Peter's left. He wanted me to say something to you. Miss Forbes, what did Peter Marriott want me to say to my wife?
Oh, it was nothing important. He just wanted to say goodbye.
Oh, that was it, yes. What a sensible fellow he is. Miss Forbes and I were just talking about him. We think he ought to get married.
If we don't leave at once, we're going to be late. I'm afraid I haven't left any lunch for you, Miss Forbes.
Oh, that's all right. I don't suppose that the typing will take more than an hour or two, and then I can stop for something on the way back. It's all on the tape machine. Is that right, Mr. Norbury?
Yes. I finished one reel. You'll find it beside the recorder. Put that on first, and then the one which is on the machine now. I haven't used more than 5 minutes of that.
Very well. I hope you enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Mrs. Norbury. Goodbye, Miss Forbes.
You do look very beautiful today, darling. I wouldn't part with you for all the fuzzy tails in the world. So long, Miss Forbes. Don't forget my advice. that on first. And then the one which is on the machine now. I haven't used more than 5 minutes of that.
Very well. I hope you enjoy your lunch.
I will, thank you.
Goodbye, Mrs. Norbury. Goodbye, Mrs. Ford.
You just say you were too scared. And that way you could get back here. After they'd found him.
We're pretending to work out a theory that you heard from some little man. We're not doing that, are we? We're planning to kill Charles. As if it was the most ordinary, everyday thing in the world. We are planning it, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Oh, God.
You just do what I told you and leave the rest to me.
What are you going to do? I have to know.
Well, next Saturday morning around 10 a.m., I'll leave the Bay Court and I'll tell the doorman that I'm going to drive up to...
Hello? No, Dr. Murray. No, your wife is not here. Mine should be back in about a quarter of an hour, around 7, I should think. Unless the two of them decide to make a night of it. Oh, I didn't know she had. You mean you'd like me to thank my wife for her letter, thanking your wife for her lunch? Yes, I will certainly do that. Good night, Dr. Murray. It was a terrible lunch. Yes?
Good evening, sir.
Who are you? What do you want?
Mr. Charles Norbury?
Yes?
Excuse me, sir, for coming by at this time. I wondered if I might have a word with you.
Who are you?
Joe Davidson, County Sheriff.
Oh, well, you better come in.
Thank you, sir.
You're not going to arrest me or anything, I hope?
No, sir, nothing like that.
Well, as you can see, I'm very busy, Sheriff, so if you'll be as brief as possible.
Yes, sir. More fuzzy tail, Mr. Norbury.
I beg your pardon?
I've got 2 kids, sir. Boy and a girl. We bring them up on your books.
Oh.
They won't go to sleep until they've had a story. They know them all by heart, of course. If my wife or I get one word wrong, they're on to it quick as a flash.
This is most interesting, Sheriff.
Yes, sir, they're very sharp. Oh, we've got the dolls, too. Small Bobby for Sally, my daughter, and Fuzzy Tail for little Chuck. You should see how they fight if one tries to grab what belongs to the other.
I'm delighted to hear all this, Sheriff. But you see, I really must get on with my work.
Oh, sorry, but, it's about your gun.
My gun?
Revolver, isn't it? You still have it, I suppose.
Yes. It's in here. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
Oh, no, sir. Mind if I take a look at it? Thank you. Always keep it loaded, sir?
Yes, well, it wouldn't be much use against a burglar if I didn't, would it?
The drawer unlocked?
Yes?
I would keep the drawer locked if I were you, sir. You never know. One of the children might get hold of it.
We have no children, Sheriff.
Oh. Well, any unauthorized person might. You
Thank
never
you
know.
for your advice, but would you mind telling me why you came here?
It's about your gun permit. It's a month out of date.
Oh, no. Well, that's my wife's fault. She takes care of that sort of thing. I'll ring her now.
Oh, no, there's no need for that, sir.
No, but she's only down at the country club.
Well, then you won't get very far. The country club switchboard's been out of order all day.
Oh, well, what do I do now? Surrender my arms to you?
No, sir. You just send for a renewal tomorrow morning. That'll be okay. Enclose the old permit, too, of course.
It's upstairs somewhere. I'll see that it's done. Good night, Sheriff.
Good night. Oh, don't bother. I'll see myself out.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir. There's just one other thing.
Yes?
I suppose you're wondering why a county sheriff would come and see you about a small matter like this.
Well, not really. I'm not very up on police protocol.
Well, it's usually one of my deputy's jobs, but I was born here, and I like to come down from county headquarters every now and again just to see old friends and such.
Yes?
That's how I knew about the country club switchboard. I called there this afternoon. My two kids learned how to swim in that pool. My father used to be the maitre d'.
This is most interesting, but I fail to see
Barney
how this...
Nash, that's my deputy. He told me that you were living here, so I told him that I'd come and see about the permit so I could... I know it's very unethical behavior, sir, but... I wondered if you'd just autograph these two books for Sally and little Chuck. They'd be thrilled. Really thrilled.
Do you mean to tell me that you've been wasting my time talking about a gun permit so you could ask me to sign my name in those 2 books?
Well,
How would you feel, Sheriff, if during your business hours a total stranger got into your office on some flimsy pretext or other, and after interrupting your professional work, asked you to sign a couple copies of the police chief?
Well, that's hardly the same thing,
It is exactly the same thing. These are my business hours. This is my professional work. Or do you think that authors are amateurs, indulging in a hobby and therefore have no right to expect privacy?
No, I thought they were usually men of insight and understanding. You just, send along the old permit tomorrow, sir.
I'll get the damn thing now and send it off in the morning.
Oh, and, keep this locked up. Be a shame if someone walked in here sometime and took a shot at you. Wouldn't it? Good night, Mr. Norbury.
Hello? Hello, Richard. This is Charles. Did you phone me just now? Yes, I thought it must be you. Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to the phone in time, but I had a visit from the police. No, it's nothing like that. It's one of our more devoted readers. Sheriff, he wanted a couple copies of Fuzzy Tail signed, and he used the excuse that my gun permit was out of date. Well, yes, of course I keep a gun. Yeah, and so would you if you were a author living in the woods instead of a publisher spending his... Yes, that's why I didn't get to the phone in time. I was upstairs with the damn thing looking for the permit. Yes. Yes, I'm listening. No. I'm just making myself comfortable. No, I certainly will not change it. I know you're my publisher, but... Now, listen, Richard, I'm the one who created Small Bobby and Little Fuzzy Tail, and I know better than anyone else what they should do and what they shouldn't. Oh, don't be so damn stupid. Well, take this... Please, take this sheriff character tonight. Now, his children are brought up on them. They don't want any changes, nor does anybody else except you. You're simply out of touch. Oh, I am I? Well, then you tell me why my books have sold better than any of your other authors for the last 5 years. Yes, well, I'll tell you why, Richard. Because I understand children. And that doesn't mean you've got to have a brood of your own. It doesn't even mean you've got to like them. It's just a gift, that's all. I happen to possess it, and you don't. Well, that is your last word? Well, this is mine. There is only one Small Bobby and one Fuzzy Tail. But there are plenty of other publishers. Good night. Spacesuits. Trips to the moon. It's damn nonsense.
Charles.
What the hell are you doing
where
with
you
that
are.
gun? And how did you
Just
get
be
in?
quiet and listen to me. I want to marry Anne. If you refuse to give her a divorce, I'm going to kill you.
Oh, for God's sakes, Peter. Don't be so melodramatic.
I mean it. I am completely serious.
Yes, I do believe you are.
This is your last chance. Will you give me your word that you will divorce her?
No. Well, why don't you pull the trigger? Really, Peter. You and your childish threats.
All right, stop right there.
You startled me just now. I spilled scotch all over my shirt. I'd like to clean it
I'll
up.
ask you once more, will you divorce her?
I'm not the least bit frightened of you, Peter. Even with that thing pointing straight at my heart. You won't kill me for the same reason that you won't take Anne away from me, with or without a divorce, because you hadn't the guts. You despise me for the way I treat her? All right. I don't love her. I don't even like her. I only keep her because it suits me. But compared to you, I am a white and shining angel. Peter, you're a dirty, scheming little coward.
Don't move.
Go on, shoot me. You couldn't in a million years. All you're good for is sleeping with another man's wife. Well, make the best of it, you bastard. You and your miserable slut. Because that's all you get from me.
Oh, Anne, thank God. Yes, of course it's Charles. Look, Anne, somebody broke into the house. No, I don't know who it is. I've never seen him before, but he's got my gun. And he's gone upstairs. Oh, God. He's coming back down again. Call the police, quick.
Yes. Look, I want the verification on that phone call as soon as possible. Yes, they're on their way now. Phone me as soon as you get that other information. Right. Fuzzy Tail picked up the magician's top hat and looked inside. "Where's small Bobby?" he squeaked. "Inside the hat," said the magician in his bass drum voice. "He's not," cried Fuzzy Tail indignantly. "He's disappeared. Look again," boomed the magician. Fuzzy Tail looked. He looked so hard and so far that only his furry tail could be seen sticking out over the rim of the hat. "There's nothing in here," he said. "Absolutely nothing at all."
There's nothing back there either, Sheriff.
Very funny, Nash. Not very helpful. What's Mrs. Norbury like?
Oh, a quiet type, I'd say. I hardly ever seen her in town, but then they're only out here on the weekends.
So tonight was a special exception then? She goes to the club, he's alone in the house. Anyone likely to know that?
Only the other people at the country club, but they're not likely to get somebody to come crashing through that window.
Barney, would you say the Norberrys like each other?
Well, they got married, didn't they?
So did Hamlet's mother and father.
Huh?
They don't have any children.
There's a lot of possible reasons for that. To start with, he or she might be...
All right, Nash. I've heard about the birds and the bees myself. You sure the gun isn't upstairs?
Positive. Maybe the guy took it with him.
Barney, you should apply for the FBI.
Think you'd be able to tell anything from the fingerprints?
I doubt it. He was probably wearing
Oh,
gloves.
I bet that's Mrs. Norberry coming back. What are you going to tell her?
Before I tell her anything, I'm going to ask her a few questions.
Well, take it easy on her, Sheriff. I mean, it's not going to be pleasant for her.
Have you got a notebook?
Yes, sir.
Then use it and keep your trap shut.
Where is he? Where's Charles?
It's all right, Mrs. Norberry. I'm Sheriff Davidson.
Where is he?
Mrs. Norberry, I must ask you a few questions.
Why won't you tell me what's happened to him?
I thought perhaps you could tell me, Mrs. Norberry.
What do you mean?
Where did you phone this house from?
Why, from the country club.
Their switchboard's been out of order all day.
Yes, I know. But just as I was trying to call Charles, the phone company got through and said it had been repaired.
Did they? Or did he manage to get through to you?
I don't understand.
Did he tell you that I'd been up to this house 10 minutes earlier and we had a slight argument?
For God's sake, stop this and tell me where Charles is.
Davidson. I see. You sure? All right, well, tell Foster to give you 2 more cars. If you don't have any luck in half an hour, try using the dogs. Right. Mrs. Norberry, I owe you an apology. Because I had a little disagreement with your husband, I guessed that he was trying to pull a fast one on me. I guessed that he telephoned you at the club and persuaded you to make a false report to the police just so that I would look like a fool. It's been done before, but my people just traced the call that you made to him. I'm sorry.
I don't understand a word you're saying. Why won't you tell me where Charles is?
I'm afraid I can't.
What?
We don't know where he is.
You mean he's not here?
When we arrived, the house was empty.
You mean he's not dead?
Good heavens, no. Mrs. Norberry, I really am very sorry. I should have guessed you would have thought that. No. What obviously happened is that the man who broke in heard your husband telling you about him on the phone, got scared, lost his nerve, took off. Your husband must have gone after him. Now, please, Mrs. Norberry, don't worry. Your husband won't come to any harm, even if the intruder still has his gun. Once they've been spotted, their one idea is to get away. The first thing he'll do is try and get rid of the gun. My people will find it soon, if they don't find him first. I've got half the county out looking for him. Oh, no. Nash, water, quick. Put a drop of brandy in it. Nash, it's the bottle marked brandy. Here, Mrs. Norberry, here we go. Now, just drink this. There, everything's going to be all right. Your husband is not hurt. I've no doubt of it. Everything's going to be all right.
I'm sorry. I thought he was dead.
After what he told you on the telephone, that's only natural. I shouldn't have questioned what you said. Can only repeat, I'm very sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, now let's try to get up. There we go. There we go. There. I'll just sit over here. There. People do try to play practical jokes on the police, fool them and so on. I should have guessed you weren't that type. Feeling any better?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Breaking and entering in a remote place like this is usually done by an old pro. I guess it'll turn out to be someone with a record. This wouldn't be a spur-of-the-moment job. I've no doubt the police will catch him. That will be the end of it, as far as you're concerned. Your husband will have to prefer charges, of course, but that's all.
Yes.
I've no doubt Mr. Norbury will be back very soon. Chasing an intruder's not much fun once he's off your property. Well, if you'll excuse me, I'll be getting back to my office. Ma'am. Oh, I'll leave Deputy Nash here just to keep you company.
Oh, no. That's very kind of you, but I'm quite all right, really.
You sure it's no trouble?
Quite all right, really.
Fine. Oh, and Nash, just draw the drapes. Keep out the draft. We'll get that window fixed in the morning.
Thank you.
Okay, then. Oh, one of my men will probably meet up with Mr. Norbury, but if not, I'd be glad if you'd just have him call me when he gets in. Just to give us the facts. You'll be able to do that?
Yes. Yes, of course I will.
Fine. Mrs. Norbury, are you sure you wouldn't want Deputy Nash to wait for a while?
No, I'm all right. Thank you.
I'd go and lie down if I were you, Mrs. Norbury. Well, good night. Sorry that you've had all this trouble.
Good night, Sheriff.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night. And please forgive me thinking you were trying to mislead me.
Of course.
We all make mistakes sometimes. Good night.
San Francisco, please. Llewellyn 54921. Yes, this is 5287. Bay Court. Commander Marriott's apartment, please. No, there's no message, thank you.
Good evening, Mrs. Norbury. You? Do you mind if I get warm? What are you doing here? I've been hiding in the garden. Luckily, I know it rather better than the police. They didn't find me, but I had to wait until they left.
The police? How did you know they were here?
You know, I really think it would be better if you sat down. There. That's more comfortable. Now we can talk.
How did you know?
It's obvious, really, isn't it? I mean, the police always visit the scene of a murder.
What?
And when someone's warned them about it before it's happened, they're apt to get there a little more quickly than usual.
I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, I think it would be easier, Mrs. Norbury, if we decided to be honest with each other, not try and hide things. You see, I know who killed your husband.
Charles hasn't been killed. The police were just here.
I saw it happen.
His body was lying over there.
And when Peter Marriott fired the gun, he was standing just about here.
You're lying. You're inventing this. I won't listen to any more.
I saw it all through the window.
I don't believe a word you're saying.
Would you like me to tell you exactly what happened?
No. I mean,
the gun wasn't in the drawer. Mr. Norbury had taken it upstairs with him. Fortunately for him, Peter Marriott realized that, and he went up to get it. Otherwise, the plan that you and he had worked out would have failed.
the plan? What plan?
Are you crazy? Last Saturday morning, a week ago today, before I arrived, Mrs. Norbury, you and Commander Marriott planned to kill your husband.
How dare you? How dare you say a thing like that?
Because I heard you. Every word you said. Both of you.
You are crazy. This plan you imagine, this conversation that you've invented. You said it took place before you got here, so how could you possibly have heard it?
Before Commander Marriott arrived here that morning, your husband had been using the tape recorder. I was supposed to type his dictation while you were out at lunch.
So?
You brought him some coffee. You interrupted him in his work, Mrs. Norbury.
Did he tell you that?
He lost his temper. Well, there was nothing unusual in that. He used to lose it far too often. It was one of his many unpleasant characteristics.
What has this got to do with
He did something else as well. He got so angry that he forgot to turn the tape recorder off. It was still running, and the mic was live until I turned it off after you'd gone to lunch.
Go on.
It recorded every word that was said in this room, including your conversation with Commander Marriott.
Do you expect me to believe that?
I'm afraid you're going to have to. I'll tell you what he said when you interrupted him. He said, "Oh, Christ, you've ruined my train of thought. I wish to God you'd leave me in peace when I'm working." And then there was this tremendous crash on the machine. I think he must have banged the microphone down. Do you remember what you said?
No.
You spoke rather more quietly. You said, "This happens to be important." And he said, "I suppose my work isn't. I suppose the fact that it brings us an income of over $50,000 a year, which enables us to have this log cabin and a house in San Francisco, not to mention keeping you in dresses and jewelry and heaven knows what. Shall I go on?" Oh. The man who'd worked out the perfect murder. The Englishman Commander Marriott shared an office with in the Mediterranean. His name was Harrison.
Where is that tape?
Left it in San Francisco.
You heard all this, but you didn't tell anyone. I mean, you didn't even warn Charles.
Why should I? I didn't like him very much either, Mrs. Norbury.
Oh, God.
Of course, you'd never succeeded. Not without my help.
Your help?
Yes. The body was on the floor over there, and the gun Commander Marriott dropped was by the dining table. Well, the police would have arrived and found them, just like that. One dead body, one gun. Question who fired it. Answer. One book of matches, clearly marked the Bay Court, San Francisco. I don't suppose Mr. Norbury knew very many people living there besides Commander Marriott. Do you? Where did you find them? On the floor. Oh, very careless. If it hadn't been for me cleaning up after you. What did you do with your late husband's body? I dragged it out the front door, put it in the car, and drove to the river.
What?
Yes, I put it in. I threw the gun in as well. The river flows very swiftly. I don't suppose they'll ever find them. Certainly not the body. If you haven't got a body, it's that much harder to find the murderer.
Why did you do this?
Because if I hadn't, Commander Marriott would have been arrested for murder. And you'd have been arrested for helping him.
I don't understand. Why are you trying to protect me?
Tell me something, Mrs. Norbury. What do the police think happened to Mr. Norbury?
They think that he's out chasing the man that attacked him. And they're out looking for him now.
The man?
And Charles.
Good. By the time they realize they aren't going to find either of them, Commander Marriott will be safely in bed at the Bay Court. The rear entrance, wasn't it? Well away from the doorman. Tell me, were you terribly, terribly shocked when you came in here and didn't find anybody here but the police?
Why are you protecting me?
Not you, Mrs. Norbury. Peter.
Peter?
I should think he's safe now. Unless, of course, I choose to tell the police exactly what happened.
You wouldn't do that.
Not unless I have to.
What do you mean?
You've no idea, have you? But then, of course, you've never taken the trouble to get to know me, have you? Why should you? Your husband's secretary. Poor Miss Forbes. Let's ask her to dinner. She'll accept, of course. Why shouldn't she? She's got nothing better to do. You took it for granted. Just as you took me for granted.
Miss Forbes, I never felt that way about her.
Besides, she's got this old maid's thing about Peter. It's really very amusing. Poor Miss Forbes. I have a first name, you know. It's Eileen. Say it. Say my name. Say it.
Eileen.
Thank you, Mrs. Norbury. I should think Peter's back in his apartment by now. I want you to telephone him. Tell him to come out here first thing tomorrow morning so that I can see him.
Why?
I must talk to him before the police ask me any questions. There's something I have to ask him. And what I tell the police will depend upon his answer.
What are you going to ask him?
To marry me, Mrs. Norbury. I'm quite sure he'll accept. Aren't you? Please, don't waste any more time. Telephone him now. I've made myself perfectly clear, haven't I? I'm sorry I can't give you any more time for your decision. But the police will be here any minute. You do understand, don't you?
No, I don't. I don't understand anything. Except that you're out of your mind.
And you're a murderer.
You can't ask me to do this.
Is the idea so revolting?
You know perfectly well I'm in love with Mrs. Norbury. We want to get married.
Yes, you've given ample evidence of that.
How can you make this incredible suggestion?
Do you dislike me? I'm a lonely woman. Of course, I've told you that before, haven't I? I'm not beautiful or clever. I'm not so young anymore. You know, women like me
dream a lot, you know. We have to, because we can't bear the knowledge that the future's going to be no different from the present or the past. We can't stand any more pain, knowing that every day will be the same as every other. Except that we'll be a little older by the end of it. I've dreamed for a long time of marrying someone like you. Someone who will fill the emptiness with their companionship. That's all I want. Your companionship.
Please, Miss Force. This is no use. You're only going to hurt yourself.
Oh, I'm not afraid of being hurt. I learned that from Mr. Norbury. And I know what I want. Well,
what do you do if I refuse?
I'll give the tape to the police.
They'll want to know why you didn't give it to them sooner. They'll say you should have warned Charles. That'll make you an accessory.
I shall say I heard it for the first time last night. That I came up here straight away to stop you, but that I was too late.
You still could have told him last night.
I was too shocked, too stunned by what had happened. Besides, I had to talk to Anne first. I couldn't believe that she was involved until I heard it from her lips.
You threw the body in the river. That makes you guilty, too.
They'll only have your word for that. Yours and Anne's. I shall deny it. And after they've listened to that piece of tape, there's very little doubt who they're going to believe. You killed him. You threw his body in the river.
So in other words, you're offering me the alternative of being charged with murder or marrying you.
Of course, Anne will go to prison too, you know. Has she told you?
Yes.
What are you going to do? Perhaps you'd like to discuss this alone. I'll go into the garden for 5 minutes. And then I'll come back. And then, if necessary, I'll call the police.
She's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
She may be, but she means what she says. You're going to have to do it, Peter. We have no alternative.
Oh, if only I could get my hands on that damn tape.
Nope. She's left it in San Francisco. You'd never get there in time. She called the police and they'd be waiting there for you in her apartment.
Oh, Anne, what have I done to you? I wish I'd never thought of the whole crazy idea. I'm sorry.
Don't, Peter. I agreed. I wanted him dead. I'm as responsible as you are. And I'm just as guilty. And I shall be punished just as much.
No, you won't. God damn it, no, you won't. Look, it all depends on that tape. Without it, the rest of her story doesn't mean a thing.
She saw what happened.
I'll deny it.
She found a book of your matches in the room.
You can't prove it. We'll say that she invented the whole thing. I'm a jealous woman. She wanted to marry me. I refused her, so she made up the whole crazy story just to get back at me, to hurt me. It's happened before. Repressed spinster out of her mind with jealousy. There are lots of cases like that.
What about the tape?
All right, when she gets back, I'll say that I agree. I will marry her, and then somehow you keep her here. I'll drive to San Francisco, get into her apartment, find the tape, and burn it.
Suppose the police come back while she's still here.
We'll have to risk it. Anne, it's our only chance. Miss Forbes, there's no need to call the police.
No, there isn't. That's why I came back. There's a police car coming up the road. I'll go let them in. Oh, there's just one thing. Whatever you've decided to do, I think I should warn you. The reel of tape is in a safe deposit box in my name. If anything should happen to me, or if you should agree with my proposal and then change your mind later, well, of course, it could be produced at once.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm
If you
Sheriff
don't,
Davis.
she'll tell them now you've got.
I'd like to see Mrs. Norbury, please.
Yes, of course, come in.
Thank you.
Do you have any news for me, Sheriff? Oh, this Commander married an old friend of my husband's and mine. He came up from San Francisco. And this is Miss Forbes, my husband's secretary. She very kindly spent the night here. Have you found my husband?
If you don't mind, I think I should speak to you alone.
Oh, no. I'd rather they stayed.
Very well. Mrs. Norbury, do you recognize this?
Yes. That's Charles's handkerchief. Those are his initials in the corner. He always wore one in the breast pocket of his jacket.
Was he wearing it last night?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
And this?
No, that's Charles's keychain.
Thank you.
Where did you find them?
You must prepare yourself for a shock, Mrs. Norbury.
For God's sake, Sheriff, say what you've got to say.
So far, we failed to find either your husband or the man who broke in here last night. All that we have found is this handkerchief and keychain. We found them in the mud by the river, about a mile downstream from here. There's no definite proof yet. Of course, there may never be, but the few facts we have point to the strong possibility that your husband fell into the river last night and was drowned.
My God!
I'm very sorry, Mrs. Norbury.
But that couldn't have happened. Mr. Norbury knew every inch of the riverbank for miles. He'd never have made a mistake like that. I mean, even in the dark.
There is another possibility. Perhaps I should say probability. The man who broke in may have shot him and then thrown him into the river, or he may simply have pushed him in when Mr. Norbury was trying to catch him. My men are dragging the river now, but the current is very strong. That's what I meant when I said there might never be any definite proof.
You mean you think he was murdered?
Yes. Mrs. Norbury, wouldn't you like to go to your room? I've already heard your statement. There's no reason for you to be
My
here.
statement.
Yes, in view of the second possibility, I have to obtain statements from everyone who might be able to throw any light on what happened. It's purely routine. There's no need for you to be here.
No, I'll stay here. Thank you.
Very well. Do you want a statement from me?
Well, yes, sir. It's just a formality. When was the last time you saw Mr. Norbury?
A week ago yesterday on Saturday morning.
And you weren't in this vicinity at all yesterday, I suppose?
As a matter of fact, I was, but I didn't visit this house, if that's what you mean.
Where exactly did you go then, sir?
Well, I left my apartment at the Bay Court around 10. And
What's the name of that place?
the Bay Court. It's a big place, overlooks the bay in San Francisco.
Thank you, sir.
Well, anyway, I left there around 10, and I drove straight up to Stanley Point. That's about 50 miles beyond here. I had lunch with some of the officers at the base there. You can check that if you'd like.
Yes, sir. And when did you leave?
Around 5:30. And I drove back to San Francisco. I got back there around 7:30.
Anyone see you when you got back? A doorman or anyone?
Well, I didn't actually speak to the man on duty. He might have seen me. I really couldn't say.
I see. And you took Highway 101 back to San Francisco?
Yeah, that's right.
And you came up here this morning?
Yes. Well, actually, Mrs. Norbury called me last night. She sounded very worried, said she wanted to see me, so I drove up first thing this morning.
Yes, we already checked that call. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Mrs. Norbury, wouldn't you like to go upstairs? No need for you to be here.
No, I'm all right, thank you.
Did you get all that?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Peter, I don't know if the sheriff wants to ask me anything or not. But in case he does, I think it would be better if you told him... Well, you know what I mean. I'd rather it was said now. I wouldn't want anyone to think that so soon after Mr. Norbury's death...
Have you anything else to tell me, Commander?
Nothing that's relevant.
Oh, but it is, Peter. You know that, don't you, Mrs. Norbury?
Yes.
Mrs. Norbury?
Commander Marriott and Miss Forbes are going to be married. It's been a family secret up till now, but because of what's happened, I think Miss Forbes thought that you should know.
Oh. Congratulations, sir, Miss Forbes. When's it going to be?
Oh, I think we should wait now until something more definite is known about poor Mr. Norbury.
No. There's no need. There's no need at all.
Peter, I'll go to her in a minute. When I've given the sheriff my statement. Although there's very little to tell you. I was in my apartment all day yesterday in San Francisco. And then in the evening, I phoned Mr. Norbury.
You were alone.
Oh, yes. Quite alone. I live by myself, you see. I'd gotten used...
Thank you, Mrs. Norbury. Ooh.
It's cold. I'll light that fire, and then I'll get you that drink.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'll help you light the fire.
Thank you.
The storm is sure getting worse.
Oh, I'm sorry. All the liquor and stuff's been sent to San Francisco. I should have remembered.
Oh, that's all right, Mrs. Norbury. I don't want anything.
I'm putting the house up for sale next week, and I'm moving out on Monday, so everything's upside down.
Don't you worry about me. I'll just be going.
Well, it's a poor way to thank you for driving me all the way back from the inquest. Not even a bottle of club soda. I can't tell you how grateful I am for everything you've done to make things easier.
Glad to be of help.
Well, good night.
Oh, wait a minute. I do have that drink. I know that champagne isn't really appropriate, but I insist. You have another long drive ahead of you, and you have earned it. And if you refuse, I shall just have to sit here and drink it by myself. Please?
It's very kind of you, Mrs. Norbury, but I don't think so.
You're not on duty now, are you?
All right. Thanks a lot.
If you open it, and I'll get the glasses. You know, champagne isn't really so inappropriate. Commander Marriott and Miss Forbes were married this afternoon. We can drink to them.
Whoa!
Woo! You know they'll be getting on a plane from New York about now. They're on their way to Paris.
Here's to them. Happy landings.
Happy landings. Sheriff, there's something I wanted to ask you about the inquest.
Oh, I know. It's unusual when there isn't a body, but the district attorney made a special exception in this case.
No, I meant the verdict they reached. Murder by persons or person unknown. Is that the end of it? I mean, there won't be any more questions or investigations or anything?
It's the end of it as far as you're concerned. Of course, we shall go on trying to find the man who did it.
Do you think you will?
I hope so.
Of course, it'll be difficult to prove now, won't it? I mean, you'll have to rely on his confession.
The district attorney won't prosecute unless he feels he's got a pretty reasonable case.
Of course, he might have slipped. He might have fallen in by accident.
That was not the verdict.
No. Well, it doesn't matter now, does it, anyway? Charles is dead, and I have to make a new life for myself.
I hope it will be a happy one.
Thank you. You met him just before it happened, didn't you?
Yes.
You never told me what he said, just that there was a disagreement.
No, it was nothing.
I'd like to know. I mean, you're almost the last person to see him before he was killed.
It wasn't important. I would really rather not go into it.
Important to me, please.
It was my fault entirely. I came to see him about a gun permit, but the real reason was I wanted him to autograph a couple of books for my kids.
I didn't know you had a family.
Son and a daughter.
And you refused?
I had no right to ask.
Was he rude to you? I'm sorry.
Well, Mrs. Norbury, I really better get going now.
My husband was an unusual man. I mean, he was able to write those books, but he wasn't really interested in children. I suppose he understood their minds, but in a strange sort of way, he resented them, even hated them. You know what I mean?
I think so.
Writing his books gave him a feeling of power. That's all he ever wanted, was power over other people. And now he's dead, lying somewhere under the water. I have to tell somebody this. I'm not sorry.
Don't say any more. Forget it. Forget about the past. Think about the future. I said that I hoped your new life would be a happy one. I meant it.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Good night, Mrs. Norbury.
Good night. Hello? Oh, hi, Betty. No, I'm just on my way to bed. Yes, an early night. It was, on the news. Well, I suppose Charles was quite a well-known man, really. Yes, they're going to go on looking for him. No, I would really rather stay here. There's so much to be done. Packing and everything. Who? No, she's not here. Yes, this afternoon. Yes, she and Commander Merritt are on their way to France. No, please, don't worry about me. I'm fine. Yes, I will. I promise you I will come and see you first thing Monday morning before I leave. Fine, thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you, but it was so damn wet. I didn't have time to get to the front door. I'd have been drowned. Drowned? That's funny. Oh, my poor stupid hand. You look as if you'd seen a ghost. I'm not a ghost. I'm your husband. I'm as alive as you are. You believed it, didn't you? You believed it all.
Don't you touch me.
Packing up, are we? Selling the house? Oh, no, my dear, you're so wrong. We'll be living here for years, you and I. Mr. and Mrs. Charles Norbury, until death us depart. Natural death, my darling wife. Not the variety you and your ex-lover made such a mess of. If you plan on murdering your husband, you must at least give him the satisfaction of telling you how and why you failed. Just stay with it and listen. Miss Forbes will have told you about the tape. What she didn't tell you about was that she also told me about it. Yes, I thought that'd interest you. She's a very loyal secretary, Miss Forbes. Always puts her employer's interests first. Her attitude was entirely beyond reproach, and I was very grateful to her. She lent me the tape, and I played it back in my office on Monday morning, and that gave me 6 days in which to make my arrangements. Luckily, the murderous Peter had gone into great detail. I not only knew the gun he was going to use, I knew the spot on my body he was going to aim at. You fire at the heart, he said. He's so reliable. Well, that gave me my first, and I must say, rather brilliant idea. I sent Miss Forbes out to buy a bulletproof vest. And much improved, you know, reinforced nylon, absolutely guaranteed. Don't go. I haven't finished. I had thought of putting blanks in the gun, but there was just the possibility that Peter would open it and see what they were. So I decided to risk the vest. We worked the whole thing out scientifically. I didn't want to take any chances. About knowing the gun and the minimum range, I really didn't have to. I reduced the velocity of the bullets by tapping out nearly all the cordite from the cartridges and then replacing them. But there was just one snag. Although I knew the bullet couldn't kill me, it might knock me out for a bit, and even Miss Forbes' calculations couldn't determine for quite how long. And of course, I didn't want to be found lying stunned but alive on the rug when the police got here. So Miss Forbes kindly agreed to stand by and help should the need arise. And of course it did. She revived me with smelling salts. And I hid by the road until the police finished searching the garden. And then when they started on the road, I hopped back in again. And then I hid in the old root cellar under the oak tree, and I've been there ever since. We taken the precaution of stocking it up with cans of food and drink first, because I didn't know just how long I'd have to be there. And of course, the police didn't see the supplies for the simple reason that we had buried them. And you know, they weren't looking for them. They were looking for me. Oh, Miss Forbes got me a kerosene stove and plenty of books and a radio. I heard the report of the Charles Norbury inquest on the news just now. That was interesting. I got bored. Wasn't very comfortable. Unbearable. I even managed to write another fuzzy tale.
I don't believe it.
Why, what don't you believe? Why I waited until now? Well, I had to wait. Until Miss Forbes and Peter were safely married.
You planned this.
My darling, that was the whole point. You see, the idea sprang from the most generous motives. As I say, I was very grateful to Miss Forbes. Her loyalty, and naturally I wanted to reward her as best I could. There were two things she wanted more than anything else. Your ex-lover as a husband and some money. And I supplied the money. $20,000 to be exact. And I pointed out that she could also have Peter if she's clever about it.
You bastard.
Cast your bread upon the waters. I rewarded Miss Forbes, and I've been rewarded in return. She now has everything she wants. Peter's firmly married to her, and therefore he no longer constitutes any threat to our marital bliss. Extraordinary, isn't it? How justice will out in the end. And I suppose I should signal my return from the dead with a chaste kiss. I must go phone the police and tell them I'm still alive. I won't tell them that I've spent 3 weeks in a root cellar. No, I'll simply say that your man who broke into the house, he knocked me on the head when I was chasing him, and I must have lost my memory. Where I've been since then, well, it won't really matter because I'm here now. They just can't argue about that. Oh, there they are. There were some bad moments, I must admit. That ridiculous sheriff nearly spoiled the whole thing by coming here before Peter left. But I managed to get him out of the house in time. And then, like a damn fool, I left the gun upstairs when I was looking for the permit. But when I called my publisher, I mentioned the fact. And Peter must have been in the room. Because he knew exactly where the gun was. And for one awful moment, I thought Peter wasn't going to shoot me, but I managed to goad him into it, didn't I? Oh, champagne. How splendid. Oh, the country club switchboard. I gather it must have been repaired in the nick of time. It was, wasn't it?
Yes.
You see, the devil looks after his own. Especially the bastards. Did Miss Forbes tell you about the matches?
Yes.
And that was her idea. She picked them up from the lobby of Bay Court herself. She just wanted to make sure that you would realize that the police had a good solid clue in case the tape fell into the wrong hands. My handkerchief and the keychain in the mud did the rest. I thought of that one. Miss Forbes dropped them there before she came here to talk to you. So, let us drink a toast to our future. A long and blameless, if not particularly happy, married future. Go on, pour a drink. While I announce my reincarnation to the local police. better have a good hot bath first. You know, that's what I miss more than anything. A good hot bath. Much more than I missed you. You know, I really must confess, Anne, I didn't miss you at all.
I hate you. I loathe and despise you. I'm gonna leave here tonight and I'm never gonna come back here. I hate you.
I don't think you will, you know. That reel of tape still exists. It's in my office, safe in the city. So you see. It really is. Until death us do part. There's no escape. None at all. Now I must go and have my bath. Be a good wife and bring me a glass of champagne in the bathroom, will you? Bring it, Anne. That's a good little wife.
Anne. Is he here?
Yes, he's upstairs. Yes, he is. What are you doing here? Where's Miss Forbes?
She couldn't go through with it. She confessed the whole thing, told me everything.
Oh, darn.
Come on, we're gonna get out of here right now.
No, it's not going to do any good. He's still got the tape. He can use it any time he wants.
Miss Forbes gave me this, too.
And where the hell's that champagne? I want to have my bath and phone the police.
What's she talking about?
The inquest is this afternoon. They think he's dead.
And bring me my goddamn drink.
What were the words? The exact words of the verdict.
Murder by person or persons unknown.
And he's dead. He's been dead for 3 weeks.
on next, an old nag bound for the glue factory is saved as the neighborhood children go to bat for a horse called Jester.